So I welcome Tom Kula.
Well, Jody, thank you for that introduction and for everything that you do for this district. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. And I'm very, very proud to be here this evening, proud to represent the North Texas Municipal Water District. I've been in the saddle for about 4 months, so I'm still learning. And I'm still out there meeting all of our partners. We have 62 of them that we serve that make up that 1.6 million, with one of them being one of our very, very important customers right here is the city of Murphy. In fact, Murphy's one of the largest users of our customer cities, so a very, very important customer. The district started out in the 50s. The original 10-member cities said in the 50s we have drought going on, we have got to find water. And it's going to be difficult by ourselves to do that, so we wanted an entity, and that became the North Texas Municipal Water District. We grew to 13-member cities. Now we're total of 62 that we serve. We started out back in the 50s serving 30,000 just in this region. 5 years, that population doubled. By the 90s, we had 800,000 that were in this region that the district served. Today, it's 1.6 million. And we're due to grow double in about the next 50 years. So that's large growth history that we've been through. The district has planned well for it, and we are planning well for it in the future. And if we have some questions at the end, I can address where we're at right now, because right around the corner, we're in the midst of permitting our very next reservoir, which will be just for our region up in Fannin County. That's a Lower Boat Creek Reservoir. 2 permits to get. We're a matter of months away to get one of them, and then the second one, the Corps of Engineers Clean Water Act permit, we should get that in the springtime. That's due to over a decade's worth of work, so tremendous efforts. And that permit is not going to be contested. The permit that's going later this month before Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, because of the great conservation plan in this region. And we have a great conservation plan because we have great folks in North Texas that understand the importance of conservation, and you lived it this summer and you did a fantastic job. On to really why I'm here tonight is it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Kathleen Jackson this evening. Kathleen's the newest member of the Texas Water Development Board, and she was appointed this March by Governor Rick Perry. And Kathleen has a very diverse background representing agricultural, environmental, industrial, and wholesale supply interests, which include developing and implementing water management strategies for Southeast Texas, the area where she's from. She's from Beaumont. She's a registered professional engineer. She served as a public affairs manager for one of the world's largest petroleum and petrochemical producers. Additionally, she was involved in production agriculture with her late husband, who ran a cattle operation and farmed rice. She served as a past member of the Lower Neches Valley Authority Board of Directors, the Texas Water Conservation Association, and participated on the Sabine and Neches River, Bay, and Estuary Environmental Flows Assessment Program Stakeholders Committee. I won't go into all the other things that she's been involved in. She's a very busy lady. She has a very strong commitment to her own community back in the Beaumont area, and also to the communities throughout the state of Texas in her role on the Texas Water Development Board. She's been all over Texas. I follow her on Twitter, and I see she's been all over Texas, visiting many communities, delivering the message of how the board is going to implement the state water plan, and how the State Water Implementation Fund for Texas, or SWIFT, how that fits in and how that's going to benefit many throughout the state of Texas. And she's also a big proponent for conservation. I heard her speak today, and that was one of the areas that she addressed, conservation. And I did mention to her that, I want to brag on our region. We were faced with the toughest watering restrictions of any city or area here in North Texas, once every 2 weeks. We had to. We were in a difficult situation. We're in a drought like everyone else. That hurt. Lakes are down just because of the drought, but for the last 5 years, we could not use the water out of Lake Texoma, which is 1/3 of the water source for our region. So 1/3 we couldn't touch it for 5 years because of zebra mussels up there. We worked a piece of legislation. We built a pipeline all the way into Wiley so that we treat it and it met the legislation, and we're now flowing the water out of Texoma. But for 5 years, we didn't have that. That's like the city of Dallas not being able to use Lake Ray Hubbard for 5 years. Can't touch it. 1/3 of the source. So it drew down our other lakes over this 5-year period during the drought. So we went into this summer very low with the lakes, even though we were drawing Texoma water. We had to make a hard call and a tough call. And I know no one liked it. We flat out, you did. It was tough. It was once every 2 weeks. But you know what? It showed that informed citizens here in this area and really throughout the state of Texas, when you know what the situation is, when you know you can do your part, do what's right, and we can all get through it together, that's exactly what everyone in this region did. So I want to personally applaud the people of Murphy and everybody else, all the other 1.6 million that we serve, because we made it through this summer. The lake is essentially at the same level that it was back in the springtime. The good Lord bless us with a little bit of rain every 7 to 10 days throughout the summer. So we've done fine. And then we're back to once a week watering right now. We need some rain this winter, and we all got to pray for that. For all of Texas that come out of the drought. So I'm very proud of what everyone's done here. I wanted to brag on it because this is really a success story of when folks are informed about what's needed, they will absolutely come through. It wasn't easy. We didn't like it, but we had to do it. I'll tell you what, you're going to enjoy listening to Kathleen. She's absolutely engaged in everywhere that she's been throughout the state of Texas. She's very energetic. She's got a lot of passion for the mission that she's got as part of the board. And Kathleen, thank you for coming to North Texas, and welcome to Murphy, and please.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can tell you how impactful everything that Jody's doing in Austin is, how much we've depended on her in working through the issues that we have in terms of water, the opportunities that we have for the future, and we've leaned on her in the past, and we're going to be, leaning on her in the future. She's a great leader in Austin, and she's a great friend. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. I would be remiss if I didn't also say something about General Kula. And normally, in the past, in our role in Southeast Texas, I would see him in his Army fatigues when he was with the Corps of Engineers. My late husband, Tom Jackson, was the general manager of the Sabine Natchez Waterway and Navigation District, and just as you've had, under the great leadership of Jim Parks, a long-term project, Southeast Texas was working on a navigation project, and it had been ongoing for 15 years, and we desperately had needed some help from the Corps, and General Kula stepped to the plate. And just recently, it did make it through the Word of Bill, and I feel like that was just not only a Southeast Texas success, but also a success for you. And I just personally, on behalf of the folks in Southeast Texas, want to thank you for that. And then I want to just share with you as a community that you're so lucky to have, someone of his stature here to help and continue in that leadership role. So thank you so much. Did want to recognize a member of my staff, Jennifer White. And so she's here tonight with me, and she came from the governor's office. Just wanted to give you a little bit of my background, and just to tell you on a personal note, kind of a little bit about me. I'm originally from Pensacola, Florida. I went to school at North Carolina State, and then I came to Texas because at the time they had the most innovative technology in a little town called Evadale. They were doing computer controls on paper machines. They were doing displacement bleaching. I mean, the most high level of technology in that industry was right here in Texas. And isn't that today why people are coming to Texas? They're coming for the technology, and they're coming for the jobs. But I stayed in Texas because I met a big, tall Texan, Tom Jackson, and He was a rice farmer, and then, of course, later on in his career became general manager of the navigation district. But people ask me and say, well, you know, you came to Texas, you had a long career. I went from the paper industry, and my Sunday school teacher was the maintenance manager at Mobile, and he recruited me to go to work in the oil industry, so I worked for just 37 years for ExxonMobil. I did engineering work, did a lot of work in the environmental field, was fortunate to do a study with the mother of ecology, Dr. Ruth Patrick, and working with water quality and a biological survey of the Neches River, and then went on to work as the operational liaison for the North Regional Treatment Plant, so I worked a little bit with regional wastewater treatment, then took the public affairs role with ExxonMobil, and did that until I retired. Governor Perry asked me if I would be interested in this position, and so I retired on the Friday. He said, get there as quick as you can, so I showed up on a Tuesday. And I'm absolutely honored to be able to do it. And a lot of people say, well, this is a little bit backwards. Most people start their careers with the state, and then they go into the private sector, and you're coming from the private sector and, going to work with the state of Texas. And for me, it's a dream come true, because I want to be able to take everything that I learned in the private sector and all the experiences that I've had, the leadership that was so prevalent in Southeast Texas, and that I've learned for so many people in the community, and able to apply it and use it to make water policy, for the next 50 years. And I'll have to take my parental privilege and show my children up here, because, I really believe that's why we're doing it. We're doing it for our children and for our grandchildren, because what we do today is going to impact their future. And to me, that's what it's all about. They're all back working in Texas, and I'm proud of all of them. And that's Tommy, Kit, and Thea. Tommy is assistant district attorney in Marshall, Texas. Kit's working in Beaumont, holding down the fort at the homestead. My home is still in Beaumont. And then Thea is working in San Antonio out in the oil field. But, when people say, well, what is the Water Development Board? Of course, we have the mission statement, but I say, well, if you take the Water Development Board, which is a noun, and you turn it into a verb, it's developing water for Texas. So that's what we're all about. And a lot of what we've been doing is traveling around the state to talk to folks in small communities, kind of learn what's going on, see what their challenges are. Here we're with the city of Benton, and these were very powerful and energetic women that were in the community. They had specific challenges in terms of being able to provide first-time water supply for their smart community. We were able to meet with them, go back to Austin, talk to some of our folks, and they're putting together an application hopefully to move forward and help them with what they need. We've also been looking at new technologies around Texas, and here we're at the University of Texas at El Paso. They're doing some amazing work there on desal, and I think that's one of the most promising technologies that we have. One of the challenges you have with desal is, first of all, it's very energy intensive, and secondly, you have to know how to manage that brine concentrate. So University of Texas and the K. Bailey Hutchinson plant, they're actually taking the brine concentrate and recovering the salts. So it's like the ultimate in waste minimization, because you take something that formerly was a waste and turn it into a product. So exciting things going on in the technology field. All over Texas, there are different challenges. If you've heard about what's going on in Wichita Falls, the reservoir levels are extremely low. They're right in the 20s in terms of the 20% range. They've done a number of innovative things, again, trying to kind of stretch their water supply. Recently, the City Council voted $375,000 to do a 2.5-month trial on evaporation suppressant, hoping that they can curb evaporation maybe as much as 30%. In lakes really all over Texas, that's a huge challenge for surface water and for suppliers of water, and that is the evaporative losses. In the city of Wichita Falls, for example, their evaporative losses are 3 times what the community actually consumes. So challenges with reservoirs are, associated with evaporation losses, as well as, the challenges that you face with just building a reservoir today. So that's why I think it's important, and what you'll see as you look across Texas in terms of what the strategies are that people are considering for being able to supply water for the future, you'll see things beyond just surface reservoirs. You'll see things like desal, seawater desal, brackish water desal, reuse, conservation, as well as looking at transfer facilities where you might need to pipe water from one location in Texas to another. So it's not one big answer, it's a lot of little answers in Texas. Here we're with Kirbyville, and again, a small water supply group that was needing some help with their water system. Another exciting thing I think that's going on around Texas is in San Antonio. They're an excellent example of a community that I think has implemented a number of different strategies. It wasn't too long ago that San Antonio really was desperate for their water supply and what they were going to be able to supply for the future. One of the things they did, I think that was tremendously impactful, and I didn't even know, was that they have a tremendous reuse project. In fact, the Riverwalk along San Antonio, that is fed through their reuse or recycle of water through San Antonio. They're also doing aquifer storage and recovery. So if you have the right kind of geology, you can actually take water and inject it and store it in an aquifer, and then later on go back and be able to recover it. They've also just broken ground for a desal facility where they'll desalinate the brackish groundwater. So lots of different technologies that are going along around Texas that I think are going to help us to meet our water supplies. So there's a lot of focus on water in Texas, prominently because of the drought. Most of Texas is still in drought, and something that we're dealing with. But we also know that people are moving to Texas, and we see all the new growth that's going on in this area. But all over Texas, about 1,000, some people say 1,200 people are moving to Texas every day. So we have the drought to contend with, but even if it were to rain, we've got to plan for the future and plan for the people that are coming to Texas and the businesses that are coming to Texas, and make sure that we have their water needs met so that we can continue to develop and have the kind of quality of life that we want to have here. One of the things that was done during the last legislative session was some legislation called House Bill 4, and it did a couple of things. First of all, it prompted the Water Development Board to reorganize, and so the board went from a 6-member volunteer board to a 3-member board that was full-time directors. I'm one of 3. They're slotted positions. Carlos Rubenstein is our chairman. He serves in the financial role. He formerly was with the TCQ and was also served as a water master. Beck Broom serves in the legal capacity. He's our attorney on the board. And then I serve in the engineering slot. And we each have staggered terms that go as much as 6 years. So the whole thought process there was that we would have dedicated and ongoing leadership, but also that we would look across the agency and try to promote those things that promote efficiencies and help the agency to be more customer friendly. We've revamped a number of our processes. We're out talking to folks around Texas, asking folks, if you haven't used the Water Development Board before, consider us. If you've used us in the past and you haven't used us in a while, pick up the phone and call us and see what we have to offer. Of course, the House Bill 4 works in tandem and is put in place in order to administer the SWIFT. That is the State Water Implementation Fund for Texas. Y'all remember the bond issue or the constitutional amendment that was passed in the fall, Proposition 6, which promoted which gave the $2 billion and put it into the safekeeping trust. That is money that we're going to use for water infrastructure. When it goes into the safekeeping trust, the $2 billion is actually managed by the trust and invested by the trust. Our role as the Water Development Board is to look at the financial model and to be able to protect the corpus. So what we know is that we need to take the $2 billion and be able to stretch it to $27 billion over the 50-year period so that we can improve the lending power of the $2 billion. We also want to be able to tell the Safekeeping Trust how much of that money can they take and invest in longer term, and then how much can we take and utilize and keep liquid to do projects. So the House Bill 4 set forth certain priorities for projects. We're working through that rule right now to set those priorities. And then also the SWIFT money will be used to provide low interest loans to move projects forward for Texas. There's been a lot of attention to the SWIFT because it's tied to the $2 billion, but we have many other loan programs and many other financial resources for community across Texas. So we're kind of hoping as we go out and we talk about the SWIFT, that some of the folks might come running out of the bushes and we'll kind of grab them and take them over and kind of marry them up with some of our other loan programs. But it's a revolving fund, so the whole idea is that as the money is lent out in different loan programs and is paid back, the money goes back into the fund and it can be used again and again. Again, to be able to stretch what is needed, the $2 billion into $27 billion. Right now, the timeline for developing the rule, which is the roadmap of how we are going to be able to implement the House Bill 4 rule and lend out the money for the SWIFT. The comment period has closed on September 1, so the agency right now is looking at the comments and putting together the final rule. The board will vote on that at the end of the year. A big part of the rule is how will the prioritization be set. In House Bill 4, there were certain things that we had to consider as per the rule, such as the decade of need, the feasibility of the project, and the cost effectiveness. And then there were other things that also had to receive high consideration, such as serving a large population and regionalization. So if you have communities, and you have several small communities, and they can come together and they can come up with a regional solution, then that will kind of, if you will, get them more points and give them more priority in the process in terms of the SWIFT funding. And then there are also other things that have to be considered by the board in terms of the prioritization. So from the timing standpoint, we'll approve the final rule at the end of the year. It'll be voted by the board before the next legislative session. Then there will be an application process. I feel like the board will also be going out in the spring and talking to folks about, how do you get in the game? How do you put together your application, helping them through that process? And then those applications will be reviewed and probably be awarding some of the SWIFT financing in the fall. And again, it won't be the whole $2 billion, it will be a portion of it, because again, we'll want to make sure that we stretch it and to be able to have the buying power of the $27 billion. The projects that we're moving forward with, we think it's going to be important to do not only projects for large communities, which have a large need, like we do here with your million people that are in the area, but we also want to make sure that we meet the needs of small rural communities. And in fact, as dictated by House Bill 4 and the rule, 10% has to be used by rural communities, and 20% has to be used for projects that promote conservation or reuse. It's also going to be important that we address the needs of all the sectors, the manufacturing sector as well as agriculture. We know that agriculture is something that Texas was based on. Farmers are working very hard in terms of conservation measures, in terms of their practices, and we want to make sure that farmers can continue to be successful and grow their crops and have the kind of yield that is so important to make sure that we not only have in Texas energy independence, but we also have food independence. So we're looking very closely as a board to make sure that we're hitting all sectors, all parts of Texas, so that everybody has the water that they need. And of course, the way the process works is we have 16 regional water planning groups in Texas. In Texas, it's a bottom-up process, so nobody tells Texas what to do. It's local communities that look at their needs, what they have today, what do they think they're going to need for the future, and then what are the strategies that they need to get there. And these strategies are what each regional water planning group puts together, and these become projects that they put in their regional water plan, in their regional plans, and then the Water Development Board takes all the 16 plans, puts them together, and that forms the state water plan. To be able to get SWIFT funding, your project has to be in the state water plan. That's one of the requirements. But we have many other programs for folks to be able to move forward with and to consider and hopefully to get engaged with. This is our staff. This picture is before one of the hearings that was held earlier this year. They were kind of looking a little bit stoic there, but after the hearing was over, they were all happy. This is a meeting we had in Austin, and really put this in here because the whole thing that we want to provide from the Water Development Board is not only to be a bank, because a lot of people, when they think of the Water Development Board, yes, we do have money to loan right here at home. We are a bank, and we do have low interest financing programs, but we're also a resource. We're a technical resource. We are the data source for the state of Texas, so we know what the emerging technologies are that are promising. We know we've got what the groundwater data is, where the brackish water is in Texas, where fresh water is in Texas, and so we very much need for communities to come in and sit down at the table with us and let us share the resources that we have of our amazing scientists and engineers. They can really help you to kind of sit down and help to scope out a project. One of the things that we've done to help move the process forward and to be more efficient is it used to be when you called the board and you had an engineering question, you had to talk to one person, and then if you had a financial person, you had to pick up the phone and try to get in touch with somebody else, and it was almost this game of telephone. What we said, what really makes sense is that we divide Texas into 6 areas, and that we assign a project manager for each area, and that project manager has a team that's fully sufficient, so they have their own financial resources, they have their own engineer, they have their own attorneys, so that when communities have an opportunity, when they have a project, when they have a concern, they have one person they can call, they call the project manager, and then they have a team that's dedicated to them to work with them. And it's kind of a cradle to grave type thing, from inception of the project all the way through to the loan program to actually executing the loan and the project. This team works with them. So we've had some good feedback on this reorg and this new idea, and it seems to be working really well and helping us to be more cost effective. Of course, it's all about projects and getting projects up and running. And so my vision for Texas would be that you look across the state and you see Texas building projects, for every sector and in every area. Here we're at East Aldine, which is near Texas and near Houston, and this was a small community that didn't have fresh water before, and we were able to work with them and work with their community in order to bring them a fresh water supply. Another thing that we've done, and you're big in economic development, and what I hear from the economic development people is that, that game has really changed. Used to be when a new company would come to town, you would sit down and share with them everything that you could offer. Now with the internet, they pretty much know everything that's in place, and their real question is, how quick can I get there? How quick can I build it? And one of the things that we heard back in terms of moving through the application project and process and then being able to actually construct water projects was the length and that it took to go through the environmental review.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, just repeat the question. I'm small. Well, here, just say the question.
Let him read his own question.
Excuse me. In that the Pueblo and Anastasi had many cisterns and worked for years to conserve. They ultimately failed because it didn't rain. And my question, and when we're considering water, is do we have a plan C, which might incorporate a zoning restriction for forbidding further development until we get out of this drought?
Okay, well, you heard the question. Maybe there's a couple answers. I'd just like to offer some comments. We plan we plan for drought. We plan for rain, but we plan for drought. And the Texas system is set up, and the state water plan is that we plan for the drought of record. And the drought of record right now was established in the 50s. We're in drought right now. We have another couple of years of what we're continuing, maybe another drought of record. But I mean, that's the way we plan for what we need for the future right now in Texas. And in these solutions and in the strategies that have been developed by the 16 regional water planning groups, there are many different strategies. So some of the regional water planning groups have identified reservoirs, which you would need to have rainfall in order to fill. But there are many other strategies, and there are many other technologies that are promising. For example, in Corpus and along the coast, there are 370 miles along the Texas coast that would be a perfect site for seawater desal. Seawater desal is very promising right now, and in my mind, it's like the stars are lining up for seawater desal, because in the Corpus area, they're bringing in about $20 billion of investment for manufacturing facilities, and it's all directed towards the outcome of the Eagle Ford Shale. Well, these new manufacturing facilities are looking at building their utility infrastructure. And many of them are saying one of the most important things to my success as an industry is to have a reliable supply of water. So I am going to step out as an industry in the private sector and build a desal plant. M&G is actually going to do this, about a 7 million gallon a day desal facility, where they'll actually take seawater, desalinate it, and then use that water as industrial water to operate their facility. On down the road, because desal is very energy intensive, there's probably a wonderful opportunity and a synergism for them to move forward and build a cogeneration facility. The manufacturing facilities serve as a steam sink, and then they can produce a very reliable and efficient source of power. And then you have someone from the industrial sector who's used to technology and used to developing new technology, actually going out and putting in this technology. So I think you will see a seawater desal plant in Texas. We already have brackish desal in other parts where there are brackish aquifers. Many facilities and many communities are looking at that. As well as off-channel reservoirs. This is a concept where, many water providers, when somebody calls for water, they actually have to release it 4 or 5 days ahead of time before they need it. Well, if it rains in the meantime, and many places along the coast get high rainfall events, then that water just goes on to the ocean. Whereas if you have an off-channel reservoir, you can take that water, you can conserve it, and you can use it later. So that's an example of an efficiency in making the system more efficient. So I think there are many things that we're doing in Texas that will not depend so much on rainfall, that are new kind of strategies that are also in the development stage.
I think that covered the question quite well.
The idea was, what can we do to restrict development until we get over this hump?
Right now, as part of our state water plan, our drought contingency plan, we're in what we call stage 3. So that has meant even tougher restrictions for our area, and I explained that a little bit earlier, is not only in the drought, but we had lost the access to Lake Texoma water for 5 years. So Lake Levant is much further down, and our other reservoirs are much further down because we didn't have 1/3 of our water source for 5 years. If that hadn't happened, if we had been drawing water from Texoma, even in the drought for the last 5 years, Lake Levant would be 6 feet higher right now, 6 feet higher. And we would be watering at the same level as everyone else here in the region. Monitoring our lake levels very, very closely and conserving, being smart about our water use. But that's why we're in tougher restrictions in our particular area. And we need rain like all of Texas to fill our reservoirs back up. Because of the great conservation efforts this summer, and it was tough, going to only once every 2 weeks, but we were blessed with rain about every 7 to 10 days. It kept the grass green and things watered. I know there's a lot of hand watering going on, which was allowed, which folks are doing. But we made it through the summer because of our efforts, because of the conservation efforts. We had to do that. If we would have dropped 5 feet like we did last summer, we would be at stage 4 right now, which means no outdoor watering at all. And therein is the rest of the contingency drought plans. When we would go to a stage 4, which others have in the state of Texas, we had to go to it here in our region, then there would be no outdoor watering at all. That's where more than 50% of our water use during the summer months goes, is out there to the landscape. The landscape's important. I know folks have invested a lot of money in the landscapes, grass, shrubs, flowers, trees, etc. But that's what a stage 4 would have meant, and that's why we had such the tough restrictions going into the summer. But our citizens, everybody in this community understood what was needed. And when an informed consumer knows, particularly when they're from North Texas, they're going to do what's needed. And so we're not going to hit stage 4 this year. We are going to need rain. We will go into the spring months and we'll make the right calls like we did here this spring. But yes, we do need rain like many parts of Texas. With stage 4, with the no outdoor watering, now we have limited water to the essential things like sanitation, like firefighting, and for the most important things. And the level of use of water when there's no outdoor watering allows us to go a long, long way through a whole summer, through an entire summer, even if Lake Levant was at where it's at right now. So, I mean, these plans have been thought out. We have models that project, what a normal year's rain, what a dry year's rain would look like through the winter months. We're monitoring very, very closely, and we're only going to implement it if we have to, because we absolutely understand that. When you say stage 4, no outdoor watering, this is an important area, but the fact that we're watering once every 2 weeks, there's a little ripple that goes out of North Texas saying, hey, they've got some tough, the drought's hurting them, but they've got some tough water restrictions and they're doing what's needed, but they're all right. If we have stage 4, no outdoor watering, that kind of sends a little more of a shockwave out to North Texas. We talk about development, impacts in the economy. We don't want to go there. That's why we did what we needed to do. Thank you for your efforts, and we're going to be okay through this summer. We do need rain over the winter time, and then we'll make the right call again in the springtime based on rains that we do get.
Next question. I think this will be really quick. Who is the project director for the Northeast? You had that in your slides, Kathleen. Could you give that name again? The project director for the Northeast? Luis
Farias, and we can give you his phone number directly.
And they want the email for the, where's the email?
Okay, they just want the email for how you get the data that was put up on the screen. Yeah, okay, we can do that,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, so we can do that at the end. We'll get that. Mary, where are you? There she is, back there. Okay, so we got that one. All right, why isn't there more dredging of existing lakes in Texas?
Right now, we do have I'll talk about our region here. We do have a dredging project that's going on right now at Lake Chapman, or Cooper Lake, where we're actually dredging areas that have silted in, that prevent, are potentially going to clog the intakes that are down in the water as part of the pumping station. And we have the same thing planned for Lake Levant as well. Over the years, sentiment, even though we've got the many ponds and the plans that were part of that effort when the lake was built, many of them have filled in, and then the sediment begins to make its way into the lake. By dredging at Chapman and then at Levon, we can make sure that we can get access to as the very much water as possible that remains in the lake, should we go down to lower levels. So those efforts are already going on within our region, being considered elsewhere within the state of Texas. And Kathleen, if you had any comments on dredging. It's expensive, and it only lasts for so long because the water flows and the silt moves around, and it eventually silts back in. For example, last job, Texas Coast, they dredge every single year to maintain the ship channels there. Different environment when you're out there on the ocean and the channels going into Houston or to Corpus, etc. A little tougher in the lakes, but we have done that. Never undertaken because it's a huge dollar cost. Some have. A lake up in the state of Kansas, they're going to drain the lake and use bulldozers because that lake has lost about half its original capacity. Very expensive undertaking, and you only do that when you really, really have to. We're not in that situation for the lakes in our area.
The Inspiration Development in St. Paul, it's a town in the area, is sinking 2,000-foot wells to water the landscaping. Does this have any effect on our local water supply, and is there any impact to Lake Levon, estimated at 1 to 2 million gallons a year?
Many of the cities, towns, communities have done just that. They have drilled wells and are using that well water, for example, for watering parks and other city municipal areas. So that's a smart practice. If the water source is there and the town, the city can afford it, many have taken advantage of that. So that is a great technique. We, in fact, the water district, besides our next reservoir that we're in the midst of permitting right now, expect to get both permits here no later than a year from now, begin construction here next year in 2015 to complete the dam, that reservoir, and to already begin drawing water from it by 2020. And this is as a result of over a more than a decade-long process of planning that Kathleen talked about. It does very methodical process. You got to work your way through all the gates, and we have done just that. And you'll see some of the announcements coming up here later this September coming out of the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality. We have about 10 other strategies over time of what we can do to bring additional water supplies into the region. And wells is one of those things that we are absolutely looking at. Certainly, it's going to have a lot of water, produce a lot for it to do something for a region. But like I said, cities and towns have already done just that. We're looking at desalination. We could use more water out of Texoma. Right now we have to blend it because it's high in salts. And we're looking at, is it a good business case, economical, to build a desal plant and use the rest of the water we could take out of Texoma? We're taking a look at that. We're also looking at waters as far east as Toledo Bend. We talked about the other reservoir that's in the future, and I'll talk to a small group afterwards about that. We are working with the city of Dallas. There's water in the Trinity main stem, which would qualify as reuse. We already have one of the largest wetlands in the man-made wetlands in the entire United States. Your district does, our region does, and that provides 19% of our water supply. It's water that we're reusing. It percolates through the wetlands down in Seagoville, and then it's pumped back up into Lake Levon and put right back into Lake Levon. 10 different strategies we're going to work over time to ensure that we meet the needs of the growth of this region.
Lake Levon, why is Lake Levon being drained?
Yeah, I hear this quite often. I also hear it, I live in Rockwell, I hear this from folks that say they're draining, Dallas is draining Lake Ray Hubbard. It's a combination of things Kathleen talked about. During the summer months, we lose a lot of the water to evaporation. What they're doing out in Wichita Falls is kind of a pilot, a test for trying to reduce evaporation during the summer months. They have it really bad out there. That's very, very expensive, and it can only be used in certain cases. We're certainly we've taken a look at that. So you have evaporation, then we have normal use. Because of the conservation efforts this summer, we have been at level 480 feet above sea level, 480, through just about the entire summer. We're at 480 back in May when we were concerned if we lost 5 feet, it would go down to 475, we would be at stage 4, no outdoor watering. That's why we said we have to go with the only once every 2 weeks. We stayed at 480 throughout the summer. A little bit of rain, not reservoir filling rains, but it reduced the usage, and it certainly kept the trees, shrubs, flowers, and grass fairly green. So it's usage that also takes the lake down. And then also, because of permitting, there's a certain amount of water that has to be released out of Lake Levant that's got to continue downstream, and then also likewise, there's a certain amount of water that has to be released out of Lake Ray Hubbard to make its way into the Trinity. That's permitted, that's required, and so that little bit of water that's being released is just something that absolutely has to be done, that has to continue to flow south towards communities further downstream. There's no deliberate acts to drain either Levant or Lake Ray Hubbard. It's just the sheer use and the fact that we're in a drought.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
That was my question.
Oh, okay.
The real part of the question.
Can you make it a question?
Yes. Okay, the real part of the question I was trying to get at is with all the new building going on, it seems to me that we're having high velocity streams of the runoff, and it doesn't necessarily go back to Lake Levant. Plus we have communities that are taken from Lake Levant, but their runoff is naturally south of Lake Levant. And to me, that says we're doing some draining of the system because we're not putting that water back to Levant. And that's why I was wondering what we might address in that area.
I talked through really the major, what the drawdown consists of is evaporation this time of year, and certainly its usage. But because of the efforts of everyone in this area, we maintaining about the same level through an entire summer, which is just unheard of. There are some small flows that, because of permits, that do have to be released. But other than that, we're watching. All of us are watching our reservoirs or lakes very, very closely, and we need rain. We are in at least year 5 of a drought. Many say that this drought that we're in today is going to rival the drought of the 50s, which is the drought of record for the state of Texas. Even though we had some very nice rains this year, we're still probably in our area in the top 10 lowest amount of rainfall for a year in our area. So that it's really it's the drought that's been. It's a cumulative effect over many, many years.
We can talk about that. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get as many questions in as possible. I knew this was going to be a very interesting night and topic, and thank you for coming. He's new, and he could have said, I'm going to leave it all to you and Kathleen, but he didn't. Thank you. So, and we can certainly talk about it more. I just want to try and get everyone's basic questions answered. With the analysis of our watershed availability and consumption demand every 5 years, how did we get into the crisis situation of no more watering when Lake Levant goes down 5 more feet? What will our prospects look like when consumers are told we are in stage 4, and who is responsible for providing adequate water to residents and businesses?
The reason we're in we have tougher water restrictions than other cities, Dallas or Fort Worth or other water districts. Again, we've all have suffered through a drought, which now is about year 5. So East Texas lakes are doing pretty good. Kathleen showed a slide today where they're 80% or better full, some are 100%. When you get to North and Central Texas, it literally, it's when you go west of I-35, now you're talking about lakes that are now down at the 50% level. And that's about where Lake Levon rests right now. Some are a little better. I think Lake Lewisville's at 60% that provides water to Dallas. Then you go out to West Texas, and they're, in some cases, 20% full, or even down to 0. So it's the drought that is really, over the many, many years, have drawn our lakes down in this area. And in particular, Lake Levon, we would, and have been for years, 28% of our water supply of our reservoirs, you get water from Texoma, you get water from Levon and Tawakoni, and from Chapman. And then we have recently been buying water from Dallas to make up for Levon being so low, a very small amount. But 28% of our water was Texoma, and for 5 years we couldn't use that water, we couldn't draw it out because they have zebra mussels in Lake Texoma. And those zebra mussels, we could not transport them and bring them down into the Trinity watershed. We couldn't do it, and there's a federal law that said the same. So it took a piece of legislation that said if we built a pipeline, a closed pipeline, all the way from the pump station in Texoma into our plant in Wiley, and then treated it, and essentially you kill the zebra mussels, that we can reuse that water. So it's a combination of getting that piece of legislation and then building that pipeline, which was built in record time. It was an absolutely quality job, was completed just this May, where we were able to turn the pumps back on in May, partly, and then full in June, so we're now drawing water again from Texoma. But the impact of not having that lake for 5 years, which is almost a third of our source, that would be like Dallas not being able to use Lake Ray Hubbard water at all, can't use it. And then so you have to scramble around and you can say, I've got to draw from my other lakes, and so that is what happened to us. No one knew the drought was going to last this long. But it did. And 5 years meant Lake Levon is 6 feet lower than it should be. If we had been pulling water out of Texoma all the 5 years during the drought, we would be 6 feet higher. We would be watering just like everyone else. We would be monitoring our water consumption. We'd be stressing conservation as much as possible. But I think you can understand it's certainly growth, keeping up with the growth. When we planned for that, we've done well with that. So I think we call it a trifecta. We gave ourselves a green light for growth. We've got a good plan. We've done that throughout the years. We'll continue to do that. We have a yellow light for the drought. And it's hurt everybody in this area because our lakes are anywhere from 50 to 60% full. Where we have a red light, which others didn't get in this area, was because we couldn't use water from Lake Texoma. And that's really what caused the drawdown to Levon and to our other reservoirs. That's why we were in a tougher water restriction than others have been in. And we again have to thank everyone, all of our consumers out there who've done a fantastic job through this summer. We'll continue to do that. We're all smarter now because of it. And going forward, we're going to be much smarter about conservation. And I, just like you, want the rain to come, our lakes to fill, and get back to a more norm. But I think in the future, that new norm is going to be, we're going to be smarter about the water that we use. And our conservation plan across this entire region is water just twice a week. That's really all you need. And that's what the science tells us, it's adequate. Sometimes it's even less than that. The majority of the year, you need only water once a week or even less. There's certain times of the year where you do need twice a week, and that's during the summer. Dallas has adopted that. Fort Worth has adopted that. Our entire region has adopted that conservation plan of only watering twice a week. So it's that smart use going forward, and then it's landscaping with the right grass, the right shrubs, trees, flowers that are drought resistant, that require little water, And so we're not pulling a lot on the system if we start to plant smarter, use smarter things in the area. All the cities can help us with it. We're talking to all the city managers about it. Some of the practices we had 10 or 20 years ago, we shouldn't continue those practices. We need to change in order to conserve a little bit better, be smarter about our water use in the future. And that's a win-win, because when folks invest money in that grass, trees, shrub, flowers that they do buy, they want it to last when that drought does come up. So let's put them in the first place. They also want landscaping that's going to last if we've got a very cold winter. So we're working with the cities, with the council of government, how can we improve and get the message out even better to inform you, the consumer out there, to make sure you have all the information you need to make the right smart decisions to keep the water use down and also to protect your investments.
I got a comment I'd like to make about the response.
Okay, can we got, that was your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're out of time, right?
Well, we got 15 minutes, we got several questions, so.
Well, I live in Collin County, and I've lived here for 26 years. I'm born and raised in Texas. That's all I have to say, because I came for this purpose tonight. We're out of water. We're 5 feet away in Lake Lamont, and have no water. And there, to me, the red light is going to be, when that happens, you're going to see an outcry from the public. I don't think the public still knows what's going on. We run out of water. We're not going to be able to water our landscape more now. I guess we can start all over again after I built my home 26 years ago. It's paid for. I can start all over again. It's neighbor. I'm not going to have any water. When it gets to stage 4, we're not going to be able to water our landscape. What we're going to see is we're going to see our foundations of our homes float on us because we can't water external. And the value of our property is going to go plummet. We have depended on the state of Texas to provide the water, resources, water once a week. We're not getting it. So what we're going to have to do as small towns here is that we're going to have to determine our own destiny to get our waters we need. We can't depend on these people to provide the water. We can argue about the pipeline from Nexel with $360 million that we probably shouldn't have spent. We're not minded for that. We probably knew about this a long time ago about the issue with the muscle. That was a bad decision. And the modeling that y'all are doing is dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional based on the need for water and the consumption driven by people who already walked the fact that every city in this town is going for economic development. We are overriding our capacity to water through economic growth. And I guarantee you that Plano, and I'm trying to pick on Plano as an example, they invited Toyota to come in, 5,000 families. I bet they didn't sit in the city council and say, should we pay these guys $6.5 million to come and play with 5,000 families? Do we have the water to support it? Those questions aren't being asked. It's going full blast. So what I'm saying is, folks, we're out of water. 5 feet away. It could happen this year. It didn't because the rainfall came down. But it could sure happen next year. So it's right around the corner. And what I haven't heard is, what do y'all plan to do to help us immediately with this looming crisis running out of water? That's what we want to hear about in Collin County. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, as you all know, we have the North Texas Municipal Water District that oversees our region. And we were in crises for the last 5 years because of the zebra missiles and the federal government. Part of our problem is dealing with the federal government. And trust me, they do not make it easy for us to build. If you conserve, and that is a very important thing, part of the plan, but you also have to have the mechanisms to collect the water that you will eventually conserve. And to do that, the federal government steps in with their EPA. We have environmental groups that fight against us. It is not for lack of planning. It is not for lack of trying. And I would ask for the citizens to stand up to these groups. When I am on a board, when I'm on a commission, meeting with other regions to try and work together for planning, because East Texas, as Director Kula said, you know, they have the water out there, but we have DFW Airport. That's why all the businesses are moving here, because we are the central location for commerce, for easy access to the rest of the world. We can't build, we don't get the rainfall, and so we can't build the reservoirs here because we're not going to collect the rain. So we have to work with our neighbors to the east. And I have sat on a commission where we were trying to do that. And it's the same group of people that come in from the environmental groups, from the Sierra Club, from the federal government telling us, no, North Texas, we're not going to let you do this. I wish I could have you at that meeting. I wish I could have more citizens coming saying, we're from North Texas and we're not water hogs. As you heard, we have set a high standard for ourselves. And it was painful, believe me. I suffered the pain too. And
We can talk about conservation all day long.
I agree, yes, please. I did not interrupt you. Please let me finish. I asked for mutual, please. And, but, you know, I would just encourage, you know, I set this up because I want people to know what is going on. My office will be very happy to tell you when there is a meeting going on in a different region that will affect us. And I would encourage folks to go to those meetings, just to at least, you know, be a presence there and listen to the dialogue. So, believe me, these folks right here know very well what is going on. We want to keep the economic growth. I would bet you half this room has come in from another state because of the jobs coming from Texas, and we want to keep that going. And what the state does, we don't do a top-down development. We don't say, you know, North Texas, here's what you're going to have, East Texas, here's what you're going to have. All we do is try to compile and collect and bring together the different areas of Texas on what their needs are for their citizens. That's why we have 16 regions, because Texas is such a large state. What works for us is not necessarily going to work down in San Antonio and vice versa. But because we have this new commission, which is now full-time to be engaged in this important infrastructure in our state, they can pull together a statewide plan to help with the construction of projects all across the state that will benefit the state as a whole, benefit the regions independently. And so that is what we're trying to do. You got the micro level, you got the macro level, the micro level. Yes, the city of Murphy, the city of Parker, the city of Wiley, the city of St. Paul. And that's what our local North Texas Municipal Water Region District Board is trying to do for our region, to coordinate it with the state overall planning. So it's not a state plan, it's a region plan with the state coming in behind to help. The zebra mussels that Tom was talking about shut us down on a major water resource for 5 years. We were able to get legislation passed to help open that up as North Texas built that pipeline to clean off those invasive species, whatever it was. And that was my role, to make sure that I wasn't holding them up. And we did that. So I don't know if that's answering your question, but
I'd like to just say this, is that without water, swimming, what we need is help now. I haven't heard anything that
okay,
says
we need to move. I got
we can't
that.
wait 7 years or 30 years.
And that's what we're working on.
So
That is,
what I would recommend is that the city of Murphy, the city of Fairview, and the other local cities get together ourselves and decide what alternatives do we have to have control of making sure we ensure we have water for our residents and our businesses.
okay, yes, sir. And I encourage you to go talk to your city council folks to get that moving. Okay, this kind of follows up along with you were talking about the plants and the flowers. We have a gentleman here that's asked, why not grass that does not need watering? I think you had answered that. You were encouraging that. You want to say more about that?
We meet with the city managers once a month and the staffs also. And one of the things that we're talking about is encouraging cities, their planners, to start taking a look at the ordinances for the kinds of things that they require in terms of landscaping. You know, there's some smarter things that we can do. For example, I know some of the cities are looking at various means to make smarter choices or limit the types of things that they put into that will use less water. So we absolutely encourage that. In fact, we're going to look at it from a regional perspective and see what folks from our region, also partner with Dallas and Fort Worth for all of North Texas. You know, are there some smarter landscaping ordinances that we can come up with that use more drought-tolerant grasses, don't take as much water, and also to get the businesses to adopt the same thing, because they'll put out there what they're going to sell, what will sell. And if folks are buying things that are going to die in a drought because they want to spend their money on it, that's very, very unfortunate. We've got to get past that and continue to inform and educate and get the word out there, and even have businesses embrace the same thing, that hey, we're in this for North Texans, and we're going to sell the right things that are going to make it through a very, very cold winter when we do have them, or they're going to make it through a drought that when they do come up. Understand the concern, not out of water, understand the concern. Drought makes it tough, and we're in about the 5th year, so it's been very, very difficult. But the right smart choices have been made. Conservation efforts are in full swing. They absolutely help. This summer was a perfect example of it, and the Water District continues to work very near-term water supplies to ensure that we are not going to run out of water.
What is being done in terms of treating water from oil and gas facilities? Are there incentives for startups that offer new technology, air, water, solar?
Okay, well, I'm happy to answer this one. The question has to do with water that's being used by the oil and gas industry. Overall, we look across Texas, and the water usage by the oil and gas industry is about 1% of the total water that's used throughout Texas. But of course, for communities that are very much in the middle of the oil play, they're concerned about their day-to-day use. There are companies that are working in the oil and gas industry right now that are totally operating on reused water. They're not using any fresh water. There are other companies that are looking at how can they use brackish groundwater, treat it, and use it as a freshwater source. The Railroad Commission, of course, is the one that oversees the oil and gas industry, but they've taken, I think, a very proactive role in planning work sessions and bringing in the industry folks and helping to share best practices in terms of how can, as an industry, they continue to promote recycling. How can they look at brackish water as a resource as opposed to fresh water? How can they do the kind of things that reserve the fresh water for residential use and use other technologies in order to be able to either recycle their water or use brackish water for their oil and gas production facilities.
We have 2 minutes left, and I'm going to pick a real quick question, and we'll talk from there. Understand desal plant and transmission is expensive from the Gulf. Has Region C performed any study in this regard?
It is actually one of our alternatives. It's one of the part of the reaching ones. That's something this entire area, Region C, is certainly going to take a look at. We're looking at just locally desalination of high salt water that we get out of Texoma. We could use even more water out of Texoma and not have to blend it if we built a desalination plant. And we're taking a look at that. It's got to make the right business case so that the impact on rates are as low as possible. We're absolutely looking at that. We're looking at groundwater. We're looking at I tell you, we're going to make continue to talk Oklahoma water, even though they've kind of shut that off, but we're not going to give up on that. Arkansas, there's potential for that. There's far-reaching water out of the Mississippi. There's a number of strategies that are absolutely being looked at by all of Region C. And many of them, if you're interested, are in the Region C State Water Plan, which is available to the public. You can go in there, you can see what all these various strategies are over time, based primary or alternative as time goes down the road in order to keep up with the growth.
The most promising area for seawater desal is along the coast, obviously because that's closest to the source. You don't have the pumping cost associated with bringing it inland. Of course, the advantage is if the folks on the coast are doing desal, then they're providing their own water supply, and that leaves less water that has to be released from other parts of Texas to meet their needs. I really think you're going to see desal in Texas start in Corpus because of what we talked about before with the industrial growth there. And I think the fact that there's a lot of synergies within industry to capture and be able to make it more efficient. The technology is improving. The story that I tell folks is, I tell my kids I'm so old that I remember the first calculator. And I don't know if any of y'all do, but I mean, I was in college, I was using my dad's slide rule. But the very first calculator cost $500, and all it did was just the basic operations. And I remember asking, one of my, fellow students, I said, well, why did you go out and buy one? And he said, because it makes me so much more competitive. And I mean, that's what really seawater desal is all about. For those facilities that absolutely depend on reliability for their day-to-day operation and for their profitability, it makes sense for them. It's good for everybody else in Texas because as they jump out there and they perfect it and they bring the technology to bear, it'll continue to get better and better. And just like the calculator that before was $500 when it first came out, and today that same calculator is about $20. So I think you're going to see seawater desal along the coast because it's closest to the supply. I think you'll see brackish desal in other areas of Texas. One of the things that we need to be very careful of, and we as a board are cognizant of, is that freshwater and brackish water don't exist separately. Oftentimes they kind of coexist, and so we need to be very careful that if we are harvesting, the brackish water, that we're careful that we don't impact the fresh water that is adjacent to it. So it's going to take some thoughtful looking at our data and our modeling, and I think work by the legislature, make sure that we have the proper things in place to make sure that we're protective of both.
Desalination is very expensive. Just locally, we've looked at the cost of building a desalination plant up near Texoma. We could use more of our Texoma water, pipe it down here. Just the sheer cost of building it, running it from a power, electricity draws a lot on, and just keeping the filters going for that type of plant. Yes, it would provide the water, would provide a certain amount, but it literally is so expensive that the minute we get another water source like our next reservoir, we would mothball the desal plant. Technology is improving. We are working with various organizations throughout the country. We're out in Denver 2 weeks ago, talking to the Bureau of Reclamation. They do a lot of desal out in the West. So we're making sure that we're the latest in technologies and advancements, and we're looking for that point where it's going to hit that sweet spot where, because of the advancements, it would be a smart, right business call for our area to go that route. And so we continue to look at that. There's a question from a gentleman about a pipeline that crosses Lake Levon. Sir, if you're still here, if you please see me afterwards. I'd like to get your email address because I don't have the answer, but I can get the answer to you tomorrow via email.
That is the most important question tonight about the Seaway pipeline crossing Lake Levon. That is a pipeline that's coming from TransCanada. It has got benzene in it. They received a T4 permit, a one-page permit from the Texas Railroad Commission. It crosses Lake Levon in 3 separate tributaries. And my friend, the pipe that they made was made in India. When they did their permit, they said it was made in America. It's made in India. This is something that should be very concerning to the state of Texas. We do not understand why the Texas Municipal Water Department, why Collin County hasn't stepped up and said, why are we building a pipeline that this company has in Kalamazoo, Michigan, this same pipeline company that used the pipe in India, it broke and it ruined the river in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where Kalamazoo, Michigan cannot even use their drinking water. And this is crossing our Lake Levon, our mixing pond. And I've lived in this county for over 30 years. I'm in the construction business. And they put speed over any kind. They did not even backfill with sand. And your $300 million pipeline that y'all have, which I'm glad is there, they crossed your pipeline with this Seaway pipeline. They didn't even backfill it with sand. There was no inspection whatsoever.
I'd like to meet you afterwards to get the rest of the facts, and I do know the folks to talk to, because that permit is not done by us, it's done by others, but I do know the folks to talk to, so thank you very much.
With that permitting process.
We're willing to stay to finish up, these 2 questions, but if anybody wants to leave, I want to be respectful of your time. Feel free to, but I think no, that's okay. I think there was one last question. The last 2 questions dealt with, another lake that we can't really talk about right now, but you can certainly come and talk to us afterwards after the commission has left. New sources, water transported from the west for flooded areas, water desal using electronic fields, or semi-permeable. Commissioners, maybe.
Okay, so this question is just about, what are the new sources? What do we think is out there? We've talked about, a number of these, but I think the real message here is that, there is emerging technology. Part of our role as a board is to kind of be in Star Trek mode, make sure we're out there and aware of what's available, and also, engaging folks that are developing this new technology, hooking them up with folks that want to utilize it and implement it. As it comes on and it's put into practice, I think you're going to see the cost of it continue to go down. To me, that's one of the big messages I think that we can carry to folks from East Texas, and I think for years, there's lots of rainfall. We get 60 inches of rain a year, intense rainfalls that can be 12 inches in a single day. And, the first thought is, well, the water's in East Texas, let's just pipe it across the state, until you sit down and you put a pencil to it and you figure out that the pipeline is an expensive proposition, and then you got a contract for the water. It almost begs the question, well, why didn't you go take a source that's already there, that is beneath you, and as the farmers call it, if there's a sea of water underneath Texas, we just need to be careful in how we harvest it. So looking at brackish desal, looking at seawater desal on the coast, looking at how can we become more efficient with things like off-channel reservoirs, looking at how can we manage our existing reservoirs more effectively, and then, of course, how can we continue to promote conservation and reuse. I did want to end with one comment, and that is that we don't want anybody to run out of water. We don't want anybody to run out of water. And we want to make sure that people have the water today that they need, as well as the water for the future. We're very open to work with water districts, with river authorities, with cities. All they need to do is pick up the phone and call us. We're there to be a resource for you. We have the money, but we have the resource. But at the end of the day, it is a bottom-up process. So communities have to have a vision, and they have to take the initiative. But we want to be involved. We're working really hard, and we'll only be better with the thoughts and ideas that we get with community. I appreciate you coming out, and I appreciate your comments, and I'm going to take those to heart and take them back with me to Austin.
And thank you for your feedback.
Thank you for being here. Just to get the commissioner and the director here to answer any question that you had, except for the ones going before the court. You know where I am. If I don't have the answer, I will certainly get it for you. And the idea is to make sure you're educated, you're informed, you know what we're doing, you know what's going on. So thank you for coming, and thank y'all for the questions.